Hi, everyone, and welcome to the second Honest Conversation episode. We want to thank the Epilepsy Foundation for hosting and partnering with SK Life Science to better engage the epilepsy community and have conversations around reducing seizures. My name is Landis Wiedner. I am an epilepsy awareness advocate. I'm a writer. I am an editor for Living Well with Epilepsy and have an epilepsy podcast launching soon. I am here today with a very inspiring member of the epilepsy community, Jennifer Reyes, and we will be discussing the Steps Towards Zero movement, which is an effort that encourages people to take ownership of their epilepsy by communicating with their doctors. And we like to just kind of help facilitate how to even go about that. So, the Steps Towards Zero movement is garnered around having zero seizures. And because epilepsy is so individual, zero seizures is obviously just as individual as that. It could mean zero seizures in an hour, a day, a week, a month, a year. The present moment, right now, can be your zero seizures moment. And we just want to talk about how individuals can get there to their zero seizures. And our guest today, Jennifer Reyes, will be speaking about her journey in managing her epilepsy throughout her professional career with mental health, relationships, working with her doctors, the whole gamut. And so, Jennifer, without further ado, would you mind just telling everyone a little bit about yourself?
Thank you, Landis. So, yes, I am from Northern California, born and raised, and I am proud to say that I am also a board member of the Epilepsy Foundation of Northern California and an epilepsy advocate. I currently work for a healthcare technology company as a finance project manager, which is so amazing to be able to have an impact in the healthcare industry, not only as an advocate, but also for my day-to-day work. So I was diagnosed with epilepsy 20 years ago, and I have seizure free for 5 years now. So the beginning of my
Congratulations.
journey,
That's awesome.
thank you so much. So the beginning of my epilepsy journey was a little bit challenging. I believe for most people at the beginning, it's a jarring experience. And so
Totally.
for me, it really was life-changing.
So, Jennifer, you mentioned you've lived with epilepsy for quite some time, starting in college and managing so many life milestones, like even going to college, graduating college, beginning your career, developing a successful career. But what I'd like to ask you about first is just what your early epilepsy journey was and what that looked like for you.
Yes, so early on, it was very difficult. I was a freshman in college, newly diagnosed with this
Oh.
invisible disorder. The world was supposed to be my oyster, but instead, I was faced with this disorder that I knew very little about. And it was a struggle. It took some time for me to work with my doctors to find the right medication for me. And that took a couple of years. It takes time to figure out what works best for you. And so that was challenging because not only was my body going through so much physically, mentally, I was trying to wrap my mind around this new condition, what was involved in it. Is this short term? Is this long term? What does this look like?
Mm.
And I believe for me, what was motivating was the fact that I knew I always wanted to go away to college. And so, although I was diagnosed as a freshman in college, I kept my eye on the prize that I knew that I wanted to go away.
That's absolutely amazing that you just, because it takes a lot of discipline and it takes a lot of grit to be like, this is something I want and something I want to stick with. And you
Mhm.
mentioned that that was difficult for your family. So I'm just curious as to how epilepsy has impacted your relationships, not only with your family, but like with your friends or dating or coworkers, or I guess maybe what strategies have worked for you when talking about epilepsy with the people in your life?
Yeah, I've learned that my level of communication is going to impact their level of understanding and way that they can support me. At first, I was so
Totally.
shy and uneducated with my own condition, I couldn't even talk about it. So it was
I feel like that
difficult.
comes with the territory, right? Like it's like shy, uneducated about what's happening. We're just like, what?
Right. So how do you even know what to discuss, right? Other than sharing my
Totally.
anxiety,
Yeah.
my fears. So it's
Yeah.
difficult to want to pursue your life and your goals when you don't know how to articulate the things that you need to for people to understand that you can do these things. You just may need to do it with some sort of accommodation. And that really comes with the confidence to be able to talk about these things, to have these level of understandings. And so I've learned that being vulnerable, as difficult as that may be, allows the platform for people to ask questions, to feel more comfortable, to understand my needs, because I live with a invisible disorder. If you can't see what I'm going through, you don't understand what's happening in my brain, it's my responsibility to communicate that over to you, because how could I expect for you to support me or understand me if I don't communicate with you? So I've learned that being open,
Absolutely.
vulnerable, communicating. And with that, it's helped me set boundaries, which is interesting because
Mm.
you would think that being vulnerable, let's just say with your parents or at work, would make you feel, a little bit shy or afraid. But I learned that it actually gives me strength because people are respecting the fact that I'm setting these boundaries. When I graduated from college, my dad, he was
Mm.
like, I was so mad that you went away. And I didn't want to let you out of my sight because you had just
Yeah.
been diagnosed. But he said, I have so much respect for you that you went out there
Mm.
and you did it. And it was really
Mm.
difficult to walk away from home and say, no, I'm going to do this. I'm determined. So keeping my eyes on the prize of what it is that I wanted to do, but I had to do it in a way that my family understood why this was important to me. I had to communicate to them what was important. They are unable to do that if I don't do my part to speak about my epilepsy and my needs.
What I noticed is you said, I had to be vulnerable and set boundaries. And it's like, I think that just solidifies the idea that being vulnerable is being strong. And I think
Right.
our society has sometimes like mixed that up and they're like, oh no, you're weak if you're vulnerable, which I get because there's the whole like, well, vulnerable prey concept. But that's not what it is. It's you're saying this is where I need help. And that is not an easy thing to do.
Mhm.
And because it's not easy and you're helping establish those boundaries, which is actually quite vulnerable and strong simultaneously.
Right. It
And it's
took
so
time
amazing that
though.
you were, yeah. Oh, girl, I hear you. Same, same.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
definitely took time to feel comfortable enough to go through those stages. And it had to start with my family and then my friends, because that's the most
Mhm.
intimate group of people. And then once I was able to gain that confidence, it then translated and trickled into my professional career, which gave me that confidence and that strength to really stand up for myself because I had already been establishing that strength and boundaries with my friends and with my family. So I feel like although it was challenging to work through that, it just over time has really helped me and strengthen my mindset with my epilepsy.
Yeah. And I wanted to pick up on that though, the workplace, um, situation. Like how, because as anyone with epilepsy who has had a job or tried to have a job knows, um, it will impact your work life.
Yes.
And there's so many different ways, and legally we have accommodations, but like it sounds so easy to be like, oh, just ask for your accommodations, they're your legal right. And it's like, it's not as easy as that.
Yes.
So how is your work experience been? I'm just so curious because you're, so successful, and it's just such an inspiration to see someone with epilepsy at your level.
Thank you, Landis. I really appreciate that. Just like my personal journey with epilepsy has been a roller coaster, it's been the same case with my career. Early on, it was not as easy to speak about it. I had to be open with my managers. And to your point, I just defaulted to human resources and accommodations, and I did not communicate with my team. It was like this cloud that was over me where I didn't explain to the people around me what I had, what I lived with. And I just had these back end accommodations, which protected my health, but
Sure.
it really didn't do a lot for me as an individual and my confidence. And it wasn't until I had a series of bad seizures that it put me in a position that I had to just be open with my colleagues beyond my
Yeah.
manager so that they could understand. And that is really difficult because people don't even understand or know a lot about epilepsy. And now I present this information and I'm their colleague who can potentially have a seizure while
Yeah.
working with them and they don't know how to respond. So I have to
Totally.
deal with, I'm going to be vulnerable. I'm going to open up, but I also need to have the mindset to educate you a little bit, not to become emotional, and to really just stay professional. And those are a lot of things to juggle at the same time.
Well, I was just thinking I did the same thing in when I was working in an office. It was like I talked to, HR and was like, I need these accommodations. And so those were, and I was very lucky to have them, I felt, because I know, even though again, they're required by law, not everyone gets them.
Mhm.
Because you risk being fired. And so, but then I would have seizures in the office and no one knew what to do because I hadn't told anyone what to do. I remember one time, like coming to on the bathroom floor, and they're like, "Who do you want?" And I named a coworker because she sat next to me and she came in. She's like, "Oh, I'm supposed to do like, you haven't told me."
Right.
And that was on me, right? But it's hard to like it'd be like, okay, uh, hey, so and so, could we just sit down and talk about epilepsy and then talk about what happens if I'm going to have a seizure? You're like, like you said, it's not easy to broach, and then it's not easy to have the conversation. And it's like, how can I couch this? Like, you can't go out to, you can't do it at work happy hour. It's like,
Right.
so you have to it's just a lot of just honing and figuring out and planning, but then knowing that no matter what you do, just having the conversation is self-care, ultimately, is what it is.
Absolutely. And having that conversation with your manager and to just really make sure that at least they are aware, they know your emergency
Hmm.
contacts and how to respond,
Right.
was my initial, thing that I knew was important to do. But it was beyond
Hmm.
that I needed to learn that took time for me to understand how do I manage my professional career, grow, set boundaries, but have people understand that my boundaries may look different than other people's boundaries. And so, I believe we live in a society that glorifies overextending yourself with your bandwidth to show your worth and how, you are able to accomplish so much. But I don't believe that we should
Yes.
compromise our health in order to accomplish our work goals, because ultimately our health is going to be more important than any job. And once I realized the impact
Hmm.
to the job and the people around me versus the impact to my seizures, it helped make it so much easier to have these conversations because I learned the company will go forward, the work will get done,
Yep.
but my
Yep.
life is flipped upside down. And that is something that is so empowering that has helped me realize be open, be honest, talk to your
Yeah.
colleagues, have them understand you. Because sometimes there'll be unexpected events that happen with your health where your colleagues are going to need to support you. Maybe they need to cover your work. Your manager may need
Yep.
to speak to other people. Sometimes on an important day, something can happen and you're like, this is the awful timing, but I need to just be a
Yes.
human right now and tell you this is how I feel. And this is really difficult for me. I can still handle my job, but this is what's happening for me in real time right now. And I just have to be absolutely honest with you. Maybe I place it upon myself, but the type of stigma that exists around that in a professional place where maybe my manager may, not that he has, or any manager, can she handle this? Right. So I understand the step that I'm
Yeah,
taking to become human at that moment can also have a downward effect to future things. So it's a combination.
totally.
I need to be a human and tell you that this is what's happening in my life right now. This is what's real for me. But I want you to know that I can do this, but I may just need some accommodations and a little bit of understanding for what I'm going through. So I don't want you to think that this vulnerability is me saying I can't do this. It's just me saying this is what I'm
Yes.
going through and I can do it. I just may need a little bit of accommodation and understanding for doing it in a little bit of a different fashion for my health.
And I think you're hitting on something that is so such a theme for people with epilepsy is we are worried about the perception that our superiors will think we are unreliable
Absolutely.
because of what we are asking for, because we might need more time, because we might need more days off than a normal person who doesn't have a chronic illness. Um, and so I think that's a large part of why people are afraid to talk to their superiors or talk to their coworkers because they never want to be like, oh my God, like, what if they think I can't do it? Or, especially even at new jobs,
Right.
when you're first starting out, you don't want them to think like, well, then they're going to think I can't do it. And like you said, people are human and they're happy to be human. And I think they love when their human side is appealed to and addressed
Yes.
because that sometimes gets glossed over in the world, as we all know, because we're just trying to get things done. So
Right.
that's absolutely beautiful.
And I've also learned in some of these conversations that some people in turn actually open up and they will say, oh my gosh, my brother has epilepsy, but I didn't know this, that, or the other. Or, thank you for opening up to me. I was, curious about this because I had seen whatever it may be. And so people will surprise you. You never know what you're going to come
Yes.
across. And there have been people in my life that I've opened up to in the workplace that in turn ended up coming to me and thanking me because I opened up. And they've been, colleagues, whether they were a mother with a daughter living with epilepsy, telling me, thank you for
Mhm.
being open and confident at work. It helps me, go to my daughter and say, you can work full
Oh,
time, you can have a job, you can do these things. And that just touches my
wow.
heart because I'm like, I didn't tell you these things
Absolutely.
to, for that purpose, but I'm so glad that what it is that I
Yeah,
did was able to help you and potentially your daughter.
totally. Total, absolutely. And I think for people with chronic illnesses that impact their work as a whole, it can
Absolutely.
really have that effect. But you're almost like setting the example, you know, for other people that might be afraid to share theirs. So
Right.
I think there's just a huge I think it again, just to bring it back to, I really believe it's the strong being vulnerable is strong. And I think you have demonstrated that and you are so inspiring in that way. But I also know that, and we've kind of touched on this a little bit, but I want to dive a little bit deeper into the mental health side of epilepsy, which, as again, almost everyone with epilepsy understands that managing seizures, accepting the diagnosis, doing the day to day can take a toll on our mental health. And if you wouldn't mind sharing when you felt possibly the most impacted by this in your journey and strategies that you used, that again could help someone listening,
Right.
that's the thing is like you never know sometimes when you're doing the thing it helps someone else. And so I'm just wondering if you wouldn't mind sharing, some of
Yes,
your coping strategies when working through mental health issues and epilepsy.
absolutely. It's interesting because all of these things that I've been discussing about the confidence I gained at work in talking to my colleagues and my managers, it came from the worst experience that I had in my epilepsy
Wow.
journey at work, where figuratively and physically, I fell flat on my face. I had a seizure at
Oh,
work with my
oh, I'm
boss.
so sorry.
And at that time in my life, I was not as open about my epilepsy. He knew, but there wasn't a whole lot other than knowing and having my emergency contacts. So to wake
Hmm.
up and to know what happened, and he just felt awful because he felt like he wanted to save me. I have grand mal seizures,
Yeah,
and so I fell. And it was humiliating. I think anybody who lives with
so sorry.
epilepsy knows that you don't want to have one in public, but I believe that the workplace, as you've experienced, is probably one of the worst places that you can, because
I agree.
it takes you to that next level of vulnerability where you're in that
Hmm.
post-ictal state, you don't even know what to say. So it's like it's stripped away
No.
anything that you've had of confidence to
Yeah.
keep it together. It was a bigger
Mhm.
scene than my first seizure. And it just
Oh,
really took a toll on me mentally. I took a month off of work. I really had to just sit with everything that had happened to me to try to process it. And I really was struggling. I definitely feel like I had some dark days. That was the darkest. Absolutely. I felt defeated and it was challenging. But one thing that I've learned with just this condition in general is that sometimes some of the most challenging things that happen in your life could actually in turn become positive. And so I was able to open up at work. I told my colleagues more about it. And it actually was the beginning of my
wow.
epilepsy journey with, introducing the community as part of my epilepsy treatment. And at that time, it had been
Hmm.
almost 4 years since I had a seizure. So for my world,
Wow.
it had been the longest I had ever gone, and my world
Yeah.
was over. But then once I started to reach out, get some support, meet other people, and realize, wow,
Hmm.
some people are grateful if they go an hour a day without that.
Yep.
That
Yep.
changed my mindset completely. And it really helped me be
Totally.
grateful for my situation and completely turn that defeated, almost maybe even self pity, that I had for myself
Hmm.
into
Yeah.
gratitude and a better perspective and understanding that helped me gain that confidence back that I needed to.
I just want to pause because you said something a little bit earlier that I really want to highlight. And that was you talk because you keep referring to the confidence required to be your own personal epilepsy advocate and how that requires confidence. And what you said just a little bit ago was that it took a community to help you
Absolutely.
gain that confidence. You couldn't do it on your own. And I think so many times the whole concept of do it on your own is like in society, right? And like that's what we admire. And it's like, I love that beautiful concept of no, it took a community. It took other people who understood me, even though we all had different epilepsy experiences. There's still that thread, right? That we all understand. And I think that is just so beautiful, and hopefully because not everyone has a community close by,
Right.
and hopefully that's why we're doing these, right, is to create that sense of community and hopefully create touchstones for people who can't access.
And it's so true because when I was diagnosed, there was no social media like Instagram and Facebook and all these different channels to connect with people all over the world. It was not
Mhm.
the same as it is today. And so even if I think I
Yeah.
wanted to look for those resources 20 years ago, I don't know how far it could have gone. But today, the
Yeah.
fact that I have the opportunity to connect with people all over the world, which I have, and to gain, knowledge and perspective and understand different types of epilepsies also and different types of seizures, given, there's
Yep.
so many. And so it was just so
Right.
eye-opening being part of the community. And it just really was life-changing to give me that confidence. It absolutely was, because I felt like even when I had my tough times, I was able to reach out to that community, and they gave me that strength. And they reminded me of the fact that I wasn't alone, and the fact that there is strength in numbers, and there
Yeah.
absolutely is. And when we come together, we
Mhm.
could accomplish so much. And even if it's just being there emotionally for each other to say, you're not alone. I understand you.
Yes,
Sending you a warrior hug,
absolutely.
whatever it may
Yeah.
be. Those little things that help. It really does.
I couldn't agree with you more. And just kind of circling back to the Steps Towards Zero campaign and how it encourages people with epilepsy to talk to their healthcare providers, and in order to have ownership, feel a sense of control about their treatment journey.
Mhm.
So I guess I'm bringing it back to the early days or earlier days, I suppose. What is something you wish you had known sooner that you could have, like a question you could have asked your doctor or something you could have brought up, like that you feel like would have gotten you, would have just helped in your awareness of your own condition?
For me, I believe that it was the confidence to know that I should talk about anything with my doctor. I'm an 18-year-old
Mm.
freshman in
Oh,
college,
right.
and there is a lifestyle that, let's just be honest, freshmen in college, you don't sleep a whole lot from studying, and let's just, call it what it is, partying and
Yeah.
having a good old time. I wish that I understood no question should be off topic with your doctor. No topic
Yeah.
should be taboo. And if you have a goal, if you have, a way that you want to live your life, talking with your doctor is going to help you reach that goal. And so I feel like if I wasn't as shy at the beginning, I may not have experienced some of the things that I did, because I was trying to work it out with myself, think about, okay, what do I know and what can I get away with? And I did
Yep.
have seizures during my college years, but I was so
Hmm.
focused on being seizure free and a college student that I did not want to ignite any conversation that could potentially hold me back from living my life. But what I
Totally.
learned is that actually, if I speak about all of these things, my doctors and medical professionals could actually help me live out that full life that I want to. So it's kind of like this full moment for me.
I think that is so powerful and so relatable, where it's like, because a lot of people have said, well, I don't tell my doctor about this, and I don't tell my doctor about this because I know it's not what I'm supposed to be doing. Um, and once you make that turn, you're like, okay, I'm just going to tell them, I think the surprise of a doctor being like, okay, well, we can work with that. Let's figure it out. And you're
Right.
like, what? You what? Oh, okay. We're gonna try. You're gonna try and
Yes.
accommodate my life and make. I think that's a huge turning point for a lot of people with epilepsy. Um, and I just am so glad you said it so well. It's just like, as soon as you tell your doctor how you want to live your life, they will help you get there.
Absolutely.
And that's just so huge. That's so
Absolutely.
huge.
And what I also have learned is that if I don't tell them these things I want to accomplish, they're not going to bring it up on
Mhm.
their own. I have to go into
Right.
my doctor's appointment with like a list of things I want to cover, because
Yes.
they have what they want to cover
Absolutely.
at my appointments. But I have to
Yep.
be prepared to think about, okay, I'm grateful to be seizure free. So I don't come see you every single month. So let me think about
Mhm.
where I'm at, what I want to accomplish, and let's talk about what that looks like. Because living with
Yep.
epilepsy, if you have to look at it, in my opinion, there's the short term, of course, the day to day, the hour to hour, the minute to minute, right? Like it's always on my brain. But there's the long term goal. It's the long term things that you want to accomplish that I think that are
Yeah.
important to communicate with your doctor, because things take time. You need to plan. You
Yep.
need guidance.
Yeah.
And you can't just expect that things are going to just happen. You need to really participate and be your own advocate. Your doctors are not there
Mhm.
to advocate for you for your lifestyle. In my opinion, I think that
Right.
they're there to work with you for your lifestyle.
Well, Jennifer, this has been absolutely wonderful, but I do have to ask you one question about, again, back to steps towards zero. And what does zero seizures mean to you?
For me, zero seizures means owning your epilepsy so that you can take the
Mm,
steps for you, for your needs and your epilepsy towards zero seizures. Because
mm,
your steps may be different from my steps because we have different journeys
yep,
and we have different
totally.
goals. And so I believe that you have to own where you're at, be okay with what your best is, not
Mm,
compare yourself to other people's journey, or else I have found you'll be disappointed. And so it's really owning it and making sure that you understand epilepsy does not define you, it's a part of you. And I feel
mhm.
like once you own that, you can take better steps towards zero seizures because you're recognizing your own body, you're in tune with it, and
Oh,
you're saying, what do I need to do to be seizure free? Whether that's 1 hour, 1 day, 1 month, 1 year. And unless you're in tune with yourself, you won't be able to, in my opinion, accomplish those goals because you need to
yeah.
mentally get to that place to gain that confidence. So I really do
That
believe
is
that.
absolutely stunning. Like, I need to get that on a pillow or something to just look at. Absolutely beautiful. Oh my gosh. Well, Jennifer, thank you so much for being a part of this conversation. I have so enjoyed this. Um, and we want to also thank, again, SK Life Science and the Epilepsy Foundation for putting together the second episode of Honest Conversations to engage the epilepsy community. If you're looking for resources, please go to stepstowardszero.com. There's a very helpful patient discussion guide to refer back to what Jennifer and I were talking about. Sometimes, it's like, where do I start with your
Mhm.
doctor? And so this kind of gives you a little guide for that and helpful tips. Also, of course, there's so many resources at epilepsy.com, including an epilepsy toolkit, seizure diaries, and a 24/7 helpline for people who are looking for resources in their community. And you can go to epilepsy.com/helpline, and you can either email or call, whatever you prefer. And we also just want to encourage viewers to share your stories, just because, as you've seen with Jennifer sharing hers, how powerful that can be. And we'd love to have you a part of the Steps Towards Zero dialogue. So if you choose to, you can share your story using hashtag Steps Towards Zero. Jennifer, again, thank you so much. This has been so inspiring and so lovely. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in.
Thank you so much, Landis. It was a wonderful conversation, and I hope you all have a wonderful day. Thank you so much.